And what we're talking about is Q from Day 26. And again, he has spoken out before on Vlad TV.
Day 26's Qua just dropped the most terrifying allegations against Diddy. And honey, what he's claiming will send absolute chills down your spine. We're talking about alleged ritual sacrifices, death threats through email, and a pattern of dark dealings that goes way deeper than anyone imagined. But before we dive into these absolutely bone-chilling revelations,
for it to go so fast for a federal trial to finalize a jury, do the strike process, and there was a little contention about that. The defense argued that they struck 7 of 9 black jurors, so there was a bit of a disagreement about that.
Let me tell you exactly how this connects to the Glorilla and Megan Thee Stallion drama that's been brewing. Because what I discovered while researching this, the connections are more sinister than you could ever imagine. You see, what started as whispers about Glorilla potentially throwing shade at Megan Thee Stallion has now exploded into something far more disturbing. Most people think this is just typical female rap beef. But what really happened behind closed doors? That's where things get twisted beyond belief.
The first witness, former Intercontinental Hotel security guard Israel Flores, testified about responding to that now infamous incident, speaking with Combs and his ex-girlfriend, a key witness in this case, Cassie Ventura.
And what I discovered while digging into this story, it's so much worse than anyone initially thought. We're not just talking about industry drama. We're talking about allegations of spiritual warfare, ritualistic practices, and a music mogul who may have been using his power to literally terrorize the artists under his control. Let me break down exactly what went down, because every single detail matters.
Did he ever make $1 million deposit from anybody in the record business? Puff was friends with Jimmy Hinchman.
And by the end of this video, you're going to understand why the music industry will never look the same again. Here's what nobody is talking about. Quay from Day 26. You know, the group that was literally created on Diddy's Making the Band just came forward with allegations that are absolutely horrifying. He claims that Diddy and Don Richard tried to sacrifice him.
Everyone knew he was the devil. He's been the devil for 30 years. He's been covered and protected by not only Clive Davis, but Lucian Grange.
Not metaphorically, not financially. He's talking about something far more sinister. Can you imagine being an artist who trusted someone with your career only to discover they allegedly wanted to use you in some twisted ritual? Because that's exactly what Quay is claiming happened to him. And it gets so much worse. According to QL, he received an email, and I quote, that was so disturbing and frightening.
Sean P. Diddy Combs' family arrived for day 1 of his trafficking trial.
How is your father feeling today?
They walked into the federal courthouse in Manhattan, hand in hand, in a gesture of solidarity.
That he literally feared for his life. This wasn't some standard business disagreement or contract dispute. This was something that made him believe his actual life was in danger. But wait, because what happened next is absolutely unbelievable. Kay was so terrified by whatever was in that email that he immediately told his family and his doctors about it.
Now, as far as jury selection goes, I think the biggest takeaway for me is that both sides expect to have all of this done in the matter of 3 days. Now, given just how high profile this trial is, I was kind of stunned that they seem very confident that they will be able to seat a jury in that amount of time.
Think about that for a second. He was so convinced something might happen to him that he created a paper trail with medical professionals and family members. That's not paranoia. That's someone who genuinely believes they're being targeted. I literally had to process this information multiple times because I couldn't believe what I was hearing.
That was all the people that went to the puffy parties. That was all the people that did all those things thinking that there was never going to be a consequence for what they were doing. Got punked out and pimped out by some greater desire. You shouldn't have a greater desire than being a man.
This isn't just messy industry politics. This is life or death territory, but it gets worse. Now, I know what you're thinking. How does someone even end up in this situation? Because behind all this chaos, there's a real person whose life was apparently turned into a nightmare by the very people who were supposed to help his career.
The last hearing before Sean Combs' trial starts, when he walked into federal court today, he appeared to be looking for his family. They've pretty much been at all of the hearings that I've been to, but there was no presence of his sons or his mother or his sister who had previously been at those hearings.
Kay has explicitly stated that he can't go into full detail about what was in that email. Let that sink in. The contents were so disturbing that even now, even after coming forward publicly, he still can't reveal everything. What kind of threat or content would be so horrific that someone can't even speak about it fully? Think about it. What would make a grown man so scared that he'd create multiple witnesses to protect himself? That's not just celebrity drama. That's someone genuinely fearing for their safety and well-being. And the more I dug into this story, the more I realized how deep this really goes. Because KR isn't just pointing fingers at Diddy. He specifically mentioned that it's not just Diddy himself, but people in his inner circle who are guilty of wrongdoing. We're talking about an entire network of people potentially involved in whatever this dark situation really is. Because this isn't happening in isolation. There's a whole pattern here that connects to everything we've been seeing with Diddy's current federal charges. He's facing and racketeering charges to which he has pleaded not guilty. But these allegations from QA add an entirely different layer to the story. Remember when we first started hearing whispers about Diddy's alleged misconduct in the music industry? Well, turns out that was just the beginning. What Quay is describing sounds like something out of a horror movie, but it's happening in real life to real people who thought they were just pursuing their dreams in music. The timeline is absolutely wild when you put all the pieces together. We're talking about a man who built an empire in hip hop while allegedly running what federal prosecutors are calling a criminal enterprise. And now we have former artists claiming they were threatened with something so dark it involves the word sacrifice. You won't believe what happened next. When Kyle uses terms like a sacrifice in connection with Diddy and Don, he's not talking about giving up material things or making career compromises. The implications are far more sinister. He's drawing connections to what some people believe are ritualistic or spiritual practices within certain circles of the entertainment industry. And here's where it gets really disturbing. This isn't the first time we've heard allegations like this connected to powerful figures in music. There's been a pattern of artists and industry insiders hinting at dark practices, occult influences, and spiritual manipulation within certain elite circles. And honestly, I need to know what you think about this, because the more evidence that comes out, the more questions I have. Drop a comment and let me know. Do you think there's really a pattern of these kinds of alleged practices in the entertainment industry? Because I'm genuinely curious how people are processing These kinds of allegations, when they come from someone who was literally created by the system he's now exposing. But listen to this. What makes Kie's allegations even more credible is his history with Diddy. This isn't some random person making wild claims. Quay was part of Day 26, a group that was formed on national television through Diddy's Making the Band reality show. These artists lived under Diddy's control, worked directly with Bad Boy Entertainment, and had intimate access to how Diddy operated behind the scenes. When I tell you, this adds a whole new dimension to everything we thought we knew. I mean, it completely reframes Diddy's entire legacy, because this isn't just about financial exploitation. If these allegations are true, we're talking about something that goes into spiritual and psychological territory that most people can't even comprehend. The fact that someone who was literally handpicked by Diddy, whose career was created by Diddy's platform, is now making these kinds of allegations, that's not someone trying to get attention or ride coattails. That's someone who's seen things that apparently traumatized him enough to risk everything by speaking out. And that's when I realized this isn't just about Kay's individual experience. This is about how many other artists might have similar stories that they're too scared to tell. What's really disturbing is how this fits into a much bigger pattern in the music industry. We've seen allegations of exploitation, manipulation, and abuse of power before. But what Kay is describing takes it to an entirely different level. The question everyone should be asking is, how many more artists are dealing with this kind of alleged spiritual and psychological manipulation behind closed doors? How many stories haven't come to light yet because people are literally scared for their lives? And the answer to that question, it's probably going to shock you. Think about how many artists over the years have spoken about feeling like they sold their soul to make it in the industry. Most people assume that's just a metaphor for making compromises or giving up artistic integrity. But what if some of these artists are speaking literally? What if there really are people in positions of power who engage in practices that go far beyond normal business exploitation? The entertainment industry has always been known for its dark underbelly, but allegations like Key's suggest that some of the conspiracy theories people have whispered about for years might actually have basis in reality. And that's a terrifying thought. When you look at the scope of Diddy's alleged criminal enterprise, as described in the federal charges, and then add these spiritual and ritualistic elements that Quay is alleging, you start to see a picture of control and manipulation that goes far beyond anything most people could imagine. So where does this leave us now? Diddy is currently facing serious federal charges, including and racketeering, to which he has pleaded not guilty. But Quay's allegations add an entirely new dimension to the case that prosecutors might need to consider. We're talking about potential witness intimidation, spiritual manipulation, and practices that could constitute psychological terrorism. The legal implications alone are massive. We're talking about potential additional charges, more witnesses coming forward, and a complete reevaluation of how power has been wielded in the music industry for decades. But what happens next? That depends on whether more people find the courage to come forward with their own experiences, and whether law enforcement takes these kinds of allegations seriously enough to investigate them thoroughly. What's particularly significant is that Q felt safe enough to speak out now during Diddy's legal troubles. That suggests that maybe finally the climate is changing enough that victims and witnesses feel like they might actually be protected if they tell their stories. And now, let's not forget how this all connects back to the Glorilla and Megan Thee Stallion situation that started this whole conversation. The industry dynamics that Quay is exposing, the control, the manipulation, the alleged dark practices. This is the environment that current artists like Glorilla and Megan are navigating. When we see what appears to be beef or shade between female artists, we need to ask ourselves, what are the power structures behind these conflicts? Who benefits when artists are pitted against each other? And what are artists really fighting against when they try to maintain their independence and integrity in an industry that allegedly operates the way Kel is describing? The fact that these allegations are coming out at the same time that we're seeing various conflicts and tensions in hip hop isn't a coincidence. Artists are starting to speak out about the real conditions they face. And the picture that's emerging is far darker than most fans ever imagined. I have to ask, where do you think this is all heading? Because honestly, every time I think this story can't get any crazier, something new comes out. Let me know in the comments what you think is going to happen next, and whether you believe more artists will find the courage to speak out about their own experiences. Because I genuinely want to hear your predictions about how this is going to change the industry. Make sure you are subscribed because this story is far from over. And you know I'll be here to break down every single development as it happens. The music industry is about to be forced to confront some very dark truths. And we're going to follow every twist and turn together.